See, I did it right this time. I did it
Yay.
right this time. Haha. Hi, Nicholas. How are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm pretty tired. I'm not gonna lie. It has been well. I mean, so we did season one. We did 18 episodes, which was really great. And then we took some time because we have projects. Like you and I both are very project oriented people, and so we had projects. And there's the Modern Witch Podcast Network that is happening right now. And so this is one of the shows that's part of the network. There's a bunch of shows. And really what makes them a network is that I produce them. And they're all put together, and it's a wonderful community. But like yesterday, we got to officially announce the Circle is podcast with Rachel True and Matt Oren. That's happening. That's really excited. We've been recording. We recorded over the weekend, so we got a couple episodes in the bank. We are going to record I think every weekend for the next couple of weeks, and I'm just super stoked because that's going to be. They're really fun together. It's weird to have a husband that like you have this great rapport with, but like you get on like microphones with, and suddenly he becomes like this stoic teacher guy. And I'm like, you don't giggle. You're really cute when you giggle. Well, then they're recording and they have such a good rapport together that he's just giggling and he's just all happy. And I'm like, I'm just kind of giving him the stink eye, like, what's this about? But it's good. You just have a rapport with, whatever. And they're really good friends. So it comes out and it's a fun show. So that's going to be great. First episode launches in next month. So that's very exciting. And we have a couple other shows too, but I'm going to keep them my mouth shut until things like officially like drop. So it's been like a lot of getting all of that done. Houseplant horticulture dropped, which is like kind of mind blowing. Do I have a copy handy? I have one on my shelf. I'm not going to make a bunch of noise, but it's what, do you have a copy?
Yeah. Let me grab it.
Yeah, I was like, do you have a copy? Because I have sold all mine.
I have a copy.
Yay! Thank you for having a copy of my book. Yeah, so this sucker is kind of amazing. And just as far as like the reception so far. So I was like on Amazon, it went to number 1 in houseplants, which is like freaking incredible. And it's just kind of teetering along. So if you haven't gotten your copy, go check it out for sure. And I know there's signed copies available on my website and all that kind of good stuff. So go check that out. It's been good. It's been really good. And we've been booking events. Like we've got a East Coast tour that we're doing. Well, it's kind of like a northern East Coast. We're doing a lot of that. We never go down to Florida. I never come down to your neck of the woods.
There's nothing here.
You're there.
I say that, but it's not really true. It's
No.
just the big events.
Yeah.
Largely aren't happening here, not the big kind of national ones. There's certainly some new incipient things going on, and lots of little pockets of witchy goodness. It's just I'd love to see a bigger scale.
Yeah, 100%. No, I mean Florida is nice. I enjoy Florida. I've been there twice. I think I've been there twice when I was a kid. And all I remember, like we went once on a band trip. We got to go play at Disney World. And so we went down to Orlando and did the whole park hopper thing. And I just remember getting off the school bus and being like hit with this wall of humidity. And I come from an area that is right on the Ohio River. In the summertime, it is like 80%. It's like ridiculous amounts of humidity where the joke is we grow up with gills just to like breathe the air. But then I went to Florida and I experienced like living in a terrarium. Like it was a very different experience. I don't know how y'all do it. Like,
I mean, like anything, you just take it for granted that that's what normal is. And then, I go to the desert, especially like high desert, and I don't know how to exist without that humidity. So
I missed it a lot because like where we live, we have no humidity. Like after the last week, probably like there's just going to be no more humidity in the air. So we've had this whole like kind of setup where it's a lot of extra energy and attention and care that needs to go into like the yard, into like our house plants and things like that, which is one of the reasons why I took, once the book launched, I had this kind of reconciliation. Just same thing happened when I wrote Crystal Magic for the Modern Witch. You get through it and then you kind of look back at like all of the things that you've collected over the course of writing the book and and I'm just realized that like I was drowning in plants, like in my office alone, like there was like almost 200 plants. And so I had this moment of like, oh shit. Right. And being ADHD, I realized like having that much chaos around me probably isn't like great for the creative process. So I started taking anything that didn't need like an exorbitant amount of special attention out of my office and moving it around to the house, which has been great because now it gets to get big. Now it gets to like, do the big plant thing. But before, I couldn't really. So I have much fewer plants. I think I've got like 20 plants in here now, which is like way different. And a terrarium. So I have a bunch of terrariums. But anyway, all this to say, it has been kind of eye-opening to like move that energy out. And now my crystal energy, because I follow all my crystals. So all my crystals are like really vibing now. Like it's a very interesting thing. I think the plants were either using that energy, I mean, because they were growing very well in here, or they were somehow transmuting it. I don't know, but I can tell you that my crystal energy in the room has just like gone right up the wazoos, which has been great. So that's been an interesting couple of weeks of like shifting into that and just getting everything done. So I have been busy and I've been rambling for like, I don't know, 10 minutes. It feels at least 7 minutes. How have you been? Because you've been performing, you've been doing some like really amazing things.
Yeah, it's been wild. So in our little downtime, I got to focus on finishing the editorial process for like a whole book. Not exactly a small book either. I think it clocks in just under 100,000 words. It's going to be massive with all the pictures in it. It's got 145 crystals. 20% of them, actually more than 20%, are ones that I've never written about before.
Nice.
So I'm excited about that. I always try to make sure there's something new in a book for me, so I don't get tired of writing about the same rocks all the time. But also it incentivizes folks to get more of them.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to repeat everything all the time. Other things going on. I have some other writing projects in the works, which I'm keeping kind of close to the chest right now. I do have a new project I've been working on with Wiser that I'm only like just now, in the last month or so, entering like the proper writing phase. It's been in developmental stages, we'll say, prior to that. But I'm really pleased with how that's going. It's going to feel somehow familiar, but also quite different to pretty much everything I've written. And I'm excited about that. And we're just going to see where the summer is going to take me. Lots of writing. I've got a little travel coming up. Not as much as I originally thought I was going to do. I began to pull back on submitting proposals and stuff because I realized that I need time to get grounded and also make sure I meet deadlines. So we'll see. My ensembles take the summers off, so I'm doing like a statewide adult honor band. I feel like I'm in high school all over again doing that.
I love it.
Like part assignments and chair placements. I auditioned for a big international ensemble that I'm still in limbo on. I've been growing the collection of antique instruments, which has been fun. I've got my newest one is just on the floor behind me here that I'm getting to know, and it's so different to all my others. So I'm trying to do this thing where I have hobbies that are not about my profession, which is, that's the thing you and I have been talking about a lot more lately. And then our brains do this insidious thing where they're like, but yeah, couldn't I like do something with this professionally speaking?
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe I'll write a book about the horn one day.
I mean, why the hell not? Why the hell not?
Right.
Yeah, I'm totally in this space. My whole fiber, my whole yarn experience has grown into, of course, its own monster, right? Of course it was going to, because it's me. And I have ADHD, right? So I get obsessed on something, I'll just bite into it, and then that'll be my thing, my hyperfixation, right? So I've now gotten to the point where I realized, like, okay, so I'm like you with like crystals. Like if I see another polished stone, like palm piece, like I feel like I've gotten to the point where I have a very good sized collection. I'm not interested necessarily in growing it unless there's something amazing that happens that comes across my desk. And with plants, I'm kind of in the same place. I'm like, I'm good on plants. And so definitely I like to collect things. I'm totally a collector. So I've started going through and like collecting a lot of freaking yarn. Like I mean, and it's like, I say that, but it takes so much to like do a thing, right? So it's here now, but it'll be gone tomorrow, kind of a situation. So I've been doing a lot of that, and that's been interesting. And I realized that I love art. Like, I mean, I've always loved art, but I realized like I need like to create physical art as part of my creative process. And that's so useful as a writer. And so, I mean, yes, just from a fidgeting standpoint, like knitting and crochet is really great. And I've been doing a lot of trance work and a lot of stuff incorporating that into what I do, but also taking a look at like incorporating. I know this is going to sound really strange, but like incorporating like beads, like crystal beads and things like that into what's going on with like the different fibers and how can these things come together, not just from a color perspective, but from a vibration perspective and what can be woven with them. And so there's been a lot of really fun things happening, but I instantly switched to this like, well, there's a book here, or there's a class here, or there's a whatever. So like, I can already tell you there is a retreat happening next year. That's already booked. Like it clicked, it's happening. So I just signed all the stuff for it. So like next year we're going to go there's going to be a whole huge fiber retreat in Rhinebeck, New York, with me and another teacher. More info to come, but it's going to be really cool. So it's like, these things are happening that I hadn't anticipated or even really planned for, but it's like, spirit kind of opens up and says, hey, do you want to go down this road? And I'm like, actually, that sounds really fun. Let's do that. So, there's that. And I think, and one of the things that I know you and I have talked about, and I think when we were at Tide, you and I had, this is one of our in-person conversations that we had. But I've been talking a lot with the guys about just my idea of like, what does the future hold? Like, because I've kind of like, as far as my like initial goals in my career and stuff as a writer, it's like I've clicked my boxes, and so now I get to kind of be in this like new space, which is really exciting. And part of that includes kind of reinvention, right? And I'm like, well, if Madonna gets to have different eras, I get to have different eras, right? And so a big part of that was like, well, what would I take with me into the future? Like, what lessons from my past will I take with me into the future? And I meditated, and I've been doing all of this knitting on this piece, trying to like figure this out. And the thing that came through, actually, it'll segue into crystals, I promise everyone. The thing that came through was that like it's about paving the way, like paving your future with joy. Like that's really what it is. Like when work, like the things that we do, the things that we create as writers, as artists, whatever, like when those things become work and we lose the joy and the experience, like it's hell. It's absolute hell. Like my hell is being like perpetually stuck on a book or perpetually stuck, on an art piece and never being able to like see it to fruition or like get it to the end of something. And it's been a really interesting experience to kind of come through and realize that like I take joy in the creative process, and I need that not just for the endorphins, right, but for like the experience of being a spiritual person right now, like, and giving my mind and my spirit something to do together and an activity. Like it's all been really cool. So I've kind of in this place where I'm like, if it, in a Marie Kondo-esque kind of way, if it doesn't bring me joy, like I'm not going to do it. And that's a really interesting space to be at from a creative perspective, because now I can really look around and I can be like, you know what? No, I've like, there's things I've wanted to do for like 20 years, which we're going to talk about, because I guess we have some things to show off. But there's things I've wanted to do for so long that I never just let myself go and do it. I don't know. I'm like, screw it. Right. Like it's time to go do these things that make me happy. And if I can make some money, cool. Like that's great. Like that's obviously a necessity with things. Right. But I also noticed that like when I'm happy and when I'm joyful, my audience and the people who tend to work with me really respond to that, because they don't want mopey Devin. They don't want like burnt out Devin. Like, like that's not what it's about. Right. So if I can be in a creative space and share some art and we make some stuff, and if money happens, cool. Doesn't need to, like, that's not necessarily a goal, but it does make the collecting a little easier from the tax perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
if you know what I mean.
I do. Yeah, I have no way to write off my instrumental purchases
Yet.
yet.
Yet. Yeah. Yeah. That was my, like with the plants, it was super easy. With crystals, it's always been easy to like write that off because I write what I write what I write. So it's like not a hard thing. Crystals aren't everything I write about. Like it's, so over the years, it hasn't been an issue like accumulating things and being able to like, but like with the fiber stuff, like when I started doing yarn, like it was one thing when it was like I went to Michael's and I bought the cheap acrylic, whatever. But when I discovered good yarn, like yarn that, I mean, not only just from a color perspective, but yarn that felt good, because I've also learned I really care about texture in a way that I hadn't paid attention to previously. But when you have something running through your fingers, like you really feel it, So anyway, all this to say, I found some good yarn. And when I started finding good yarn, then it was over. Then it was like, oh, and not only does it feel good, but it's like really vibrant and I can do this art with it. And the best part is it's wearable art. And I had this whole, are you kidding? I have the spiel ready to go for when the husbands come and go, hey, Devin, there's another purchase from Nitique, or there's another purchase from Littleness, or whatever the fuck. I can be like, well, all this to say, yes, it has turned into something I had not necessarily intended it to, but it's not. I'm trying not to get to the point where it's like I'm making a bunch of products and I'm selling, but trying not to do that with it. I figure, if I have some stuff left over at the end of the year or whatever, maybe I'll give it away. But it has turned into at least a writing project of some kind. I can tell you that. So that was bound to happen. No, that was bound to happen. Now with you, sir, you've been very busy. So this music stuff, this has all kind of been resurging in your life, and it's been something that has like really become part of your new era, right? So like if we all get a new era, right? I'm in my new era, you're in your era. So in your new era, you've been able to reconnect with this part of yourself that was a very big deal, and part of the identity. Let me ask you this. So looking back on it, everything's hindsight's 2020. You've rediscovered a part of yourself. You've also been crystal guy for like your whole life. So if you were to look back on it now and you were to think about the crystal lessons and you were to think about the things your spirit has gained from that process, how is this experience as a musician going to be different? You've done all this work on yourself, you've done all this work on your being, right? And over the years, and now you're revisiting this thing that was a big part of your childhood. How is this time going to be different? And I'm asking you this because I've been thinking about this myself with some of the things that are going on in my life. I've gotten back into dance and things, and I've really been trying to like, well, how is this going to be different from last time? And so I'm curious, how is this going to be different, especially after you've blown your mind open with crystals and Reiki all these years?
Yeah, what's really interesting is these two things have always coexisted in my life simultaneously. I went to school for music while studying mineral science and working in the earth science field. I had the idea of which was going to be my vocation and avocation flip-flopped originally, and here we are. Every book I've written, there's been an instrument in arm's reach, so that way when I get the kind of creative burnout, I can pick up the horn and just noodle around on it and have fun, and it keeps my mind going but still lets it reset. It's like kind of like you were talking about knitting being more than just the fidget, which is nice, but it's that like being able to stay in the state of flow while still giving your mind space to reset. So music's always been there, but I really am in a different headspace about it. One of the things that I have learned is, firstly, like if it's not bringing me joy, I don't have to do it. I'm not getting a letter grade. A scholarship is not writing on this. I'm not worried about my resume, although I do apply to stuff because it'll sound good on a musical resume.
Yeah, of course.
But I don't have to accept because that's not everything my life is. But I think the biggest takeaway that my spiritual practice is giving me for this time around is like, as cliche as it sounds, is like just being present with the music. I have become, over the years, when I was a teen, I actually started teaching crystal workshops when I was a senior in high school. And I was preparing to go away to study music and all these things. And in that first like year or two of teaching, people used to ask me all the time, like, isn't music so helpful for what you do in the metaphysical scene? It's all vibration. And I'd be like, Sure. And like
Mhm.
I never really got it, but over the years I've noticed how many of my descriptive metaphors, the things that I use to help people get their aha moments are sound related, maybe not
Mhm.
strictly music, because like if you don't
Mhm.
really if you're not a musician, a lot of technical stuff wouldn't track, but
Right.
broad musical metaphors have become such a big part of it. And um, I've started to notice how much of that was instinctive all
Mhm.
along. And I have a really good ear. You kind of have to play the French horn. You really have to if you want to play like 120-year-old
Mhm.
ancestor of the modern French horn. So now just like really sitting with that and getting to experience what it's like to be in a 270 member ensemble, which is bananas. Like for people who don't know, that is a huge. There is
Yeah.
no other
No,
symphony
that's
orchestra like that in the world.
yeah.
There isn't. We have a record, in fact, about being the largest in at least the US. But like what you have to do to be together, what you have to do to anticipate other people's needs, to, you know, support the community and be a singular voice sometimes, like that's actually, I think, helping me a lot with how I want to invest my time beyond music.
Mm.
How can I be supported and support others? How can we focus on weaving together something that is bigger than just the sum of its parts? And how can we also, really find joy in that? Yes, it's
Mhm.
hard work. It's hard work to be an author. It's hard work to be a witch or a cultist. It's hard work to be a healer. It's hard work to be a musician. But it's work that's meaningful. And for me, I think the way the two parts enrich one another is understanding that we do the work for the work's sake. It
Right.
is not a means to another ends. Um, and this is something I talk about a lot with, especially my more advanced Reiki students. We can let Reiki be our spiritual practice. Substitute witchcraft, crystals, anything you like, or it can be an intervention.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
if we practice Reiki, for example, only as energy medicine, only as hands-on healing when we have a problem, that's wonderful. It's going to help us. But then Reiki becomes a tool for something else.
Right.
The only way that is useful to us in the long run is if we also hone the tool for the tool's sake.
Mhm.
If you gotta chop wood and you haven't maintained that axe, then on just before the coldest night of the year, you're going to put a lot more work into chopping that wood.
Yeah.
So like we have to make sure we do things for the sake of themselves. So my spiritual practice is my spiritual practice, not just because I want to write a book and make a paycheck. Like,
Right.
and anyone
Right.
who writes books will affirm it's never about the paycheck.
No.
It's never. That's not why we do it.
No.
Otherwise, if that was it, it'd be a real sad existence in my life. But
Mhm.
we do it because of how enriching it can be when we work from that collaborative relational space. And
Yeah.
music, especially in an ensemble, whether it's an ensemble of 2 or 300, is relational, is
Mhm.
collaborative, is communal. And I'm finding that for a long time, I've been advocating in crystal work being co-creative and relational.
Mhm.
The we'll say the volume on that conversation is getting louder over the years, and that's just kind of where we're at. And like a hidden benefit to all of this that's kind of coming to the front is more and more I'm just happy to do my own thing.
Mhm.
And weirdly enough, um, I'm getting this from both lanes of my life, my vocational and avocational, in that I really don't mind that there are like a dozen other people on this continent that are playing historical horns of the ilk that I'm into. It's probably more than a dozen, but there certainly aren't more than a dozen who are doing it professionally full
Right.
time, which I am not. I'm a very enthusiastic hobbyist. I was described as a very expensive hobbyist recently.
Mhm.
I never get into that more. So, but like just doing it and not really caring whether or not it's getting me gigs or making connections or other things. And the same with my crystal practice. I'm
Hmm.
not really interested in playing the game of how does your work compare to so and so's, or someone else has been saying this outrageous thing on the internet. I'm like, great for them.
Right.
You want to hear what I have to say? You can ask me what I have to say, but not because I'm looking to respond or react.
Bingo.
And
Bingo.
just
Yeah.
letting my practice be my practice. And as we live in a world with an increasing amount of social media noise, and with an increasing amount of unrest in the world, where like
Mhm.
some of that stuff isn't noise, some of that is like meaningful conversation, and like
It
I
should be heard, but
right
there's so much noise
right
that, yeah.
so yeah, I really, I think the idea of doing the practice for the practice sake is a great one, and doing it because it brings you joy, even when it's hard. Find
Mhm.
something to be joyful about it. That's true in my spiritual life. That's true in my musical life. That is hopefully true in my professional life. But you know, you give an ADHD person a bunch of unresponded emails to like do on their catch up day. There's no joy in that.
No, there's no joy in that. No, that was yesterday for me. That was all day was emails. Um, I feel this 100%. And I feel like, so one thing that you said about music and how it just kind of ended up becoming part of your terminology when you were explaining or looking at how all of this stuff works. And I 1000 billion% feel the same way, because there's music references in every single book that I have when I'm explaining energy and how energy works. That comes from being a musician, being a classically trained musician. And the other, the other thing that I realized, as somebody pointed out my shirt, the Troopers is a drum and bugle corps. I got a chance to perform in these groups of like all horns and percussion, and the choral things that can happen when you have like an all brass group that is just like playing at such a dynamic that it moves through you. Like you feel energy, like you feel it. You can't help but to have that experience, because it's when that happens, it's very tactile, right? So like for me, I realized that had so much to do with how I ended up constructing my worldview as a psychic and as a witch ultimately. But then when we get to things like dance helped me really understand how energy moves through the body, which became a whole other component to things. So I feel like, a lot of us are kind of drawn to the arts, and because they help us to experience and express this other part of our being, right? And we can call that our spirituality, or we can call it flow, you can call it, peacefulness, mindfulness, whatever. We can go in a bit, because there's a bunch of different things that we can get from this well, right? But there is something to it, that there are a lot of us that tend to have this as a background, music. And I think Christopher Benzak, for one, he went to school for like music production. Like he was going to be a big wig music producer. Like that was his track before he became Christopher Benzak, right? And so there is this something to it. There's something, I think, there about the looking at the world through the lens of music and musical theory, and understanding that, I mean, really, we talk a lot about in occultism the microcosm and the macrocosm and vice versa. Well, this is an example of those things, right? So to me, I love all of it. I'm totally 1000% here for that. I love that you're in a place where you're like, being present with it is the important thing, right? I'm taking that for me in my journey. I'm going to take that and be like, yes, let's be present. Because otherwise, how do you have joy? Because you just have stress, right? You just have like thoughts about the future, thoughts about yesterday. One thing I used to say to my clients a lot when they'd come in and they would feel stuck, and it was really because they were just like overwhelmed, or they weren't putting their attention in the right places. I'd say, you have one foot in yesterday and you have one foot in tomorrow, and you're taking a big old piss all over today. I used to say this to my clients, and I feel like I'm going to take some of my own advice. I'm going to really make sure I'm there and I'm mindful when I'm enjoying my dance, because I just got a choreo gig. So yeah, so now I'm going to go do that. And anyway, so aside from that, we've also been crystal people, right? So we've been doing crystally things while we've been on a break. You have a new acquisition, and I have some art-ish things that I started on to share with people. So why don't you go first? Why don't you share this new acquisition?
Yeah, I've got like little things that are building in the background. Um, I think anyone who knows me well enough is going to spot the theme So I'm just going to admit there's an Easter egg in all of this, and you'll figure out what's going on. But I got as a nice little treat to myself for I don't even remember what successful thing I did, but I got a very weird piece of quartz with this like secondary and tertiary kind of growth over it. And this comes from Cornwall, and I'm still tracking down the exact location on it. The seller had some vague information about a historic collector who owned it. And I think I've got a general part. Cornwall's not super big, but it's down there in southwest England, southwest Great Britain. And that land is so steeped in myth and magic. I don't know, there's something very Merlinian about the presence of the stone, something kind of shrouded in mystery. It feels like it breaks some rules. I also got a parcel of wonderful, mostly Scottish rocks from my dear friend Liam at Enchanted Earth. He's in Scotland. He sent me some beautiful Scottish agates. And my favorite, as simple as it is a piece of steatite or soapstone from the Shetland Islands. And it just fits so perfectly in my hand. And there, there's a softness. This is made mostly of talc, which is the softest mineral that we use as one of our 10 representatives of the Mohs scale of hardness.
Mhm.
And the teaching about softness and grace coming from that stone feels really timely for me, something that feels really important as
Mhm.
I have to be really present with a lot of stuff and sometimes very publicly. It's easy to get hard in today's world, and
Mhm.
the softness of steatite is inviting me to not put up firm walls.
Mhm.
Boundaries can be permeable. Boundaries can be like mesh and still be effective. Boundaries can let light pass through and not keep us in the dark. So, those are all kind of sweet things. He sent me some. Uh, this is a
Okay.
fluorite from Derbyshire. It's just a little kind of semi-polished slice. This is what they call Blue John, which I love and have several
That's right.
examples.
Yeah, blue gem fluorite. Yeah.
And then this was a gift from one of my Reiki students up north.
Ooh.
It looks super dark, but that's actually blue tourmaline in this quartz from Brazil. My husband took one look at it and immediately wanted to photograph it. So one day when I
Yeah.
was out of the day job, he spent an afternoon with it and found things I hadn't found in it yet. So um, I'm kind of sitting with all of that and prepping for some cool things on the horizon. I've been really digging into fossils. I've got a couple fossil related projects coming up. Little symposium I'm doing, and then I'm going to Mystic South and I'm presenting on two things: the magic of fossils and magical musical things that intersect. So
Nice.
yeah, I should probably like flesh those out before I go. But
Mhm.
if I make the drive to Atlanta, I'm bringing at least one instrument with me uh,
Mhm.
to demonstrate some
For
musical magic.
demonstration purposes.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think it's probably going to be something raucous, like a my antique French hunting horn, instead of something delicate and orchestral. So I've been looking a lot at the intersection between minerals and music as well. I mean,
Mm.
we play brass instruments, which
Mhm.
are made out of metal, which comes out of ores, which are minerals. So like there's this like stream I haven't quite gotten to. So I've been like kind of looking at that in the background. It's certainly not urgent, but I can't help but think about it quite a lot lately.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
no acquisitions to illustrate that. It,
but
yeah, but there's something
yeah,
bubbling.
that's cool. That's really cool. I have not uh, collected any new stones, but have started doing something that I've waited a really long time to do, which is to start making solder art pieces with crystals. So I okay, so to give the background story, because it's a little cute and kind of funny. So I've wanted to do this for a really long time, and it's something that, like, if you go into a metaphysical shop, like, there's usually some variety of, like, a crystal that has been soldered into an art piece, or like the seams are sealed off or something with solder, and so you can do all kinds of like neat stuff with it. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it because I have all these crystals and I've been going through them, and I have a lot of pieces that are like perfect for doing stuff like this too. So I took a night, and I ordered the stuff, came in, I took a night, and I was able to go start this whole fun process. So my plan is I actually want to make amulets and talismans from this stuff via kind of like this. So like this is a quote unquote lavender obsidian, which is just it's glass basically, and then you've got but it's a good thing to practice on. And then I had some tanzanite, and I stuck the tanzanite on because I wanted to see how like that whole process would go. But it's really interesting. It's really cool to go through this process and learn. And what I did learn was I was a little more paranoid about lead poisoning than probably I needed to be. And so I bought like very expensive silver solder. Like I didn't go cheap. Like none of, like I blew a bunch of money on it. And then I learned very quickly that no, that's really difficult to work with. In addition to it being difficult to work with, it's kind of overkill because you can't get lead poisoning from lead solder unless it's like a certain percentage, and it's a whole thing. So I'm like, oh, okay. So my good news is supplies will be a little cheaper, which will be good. But yeah, so I'm in this whole process. So I'm still going to have like anything I make that's going to be wearable, I'll still use silver, but otherwise, like, for the amulets and the window pieces and things like that, like yeah, we'll just do it. So I've been collecting pieces specifically to do this literally for 20 years. So I have a closet that's full of different crystals that are waiting. Like maybe, we were in the shop and a crystal broke, or something. So you end up with these pieces you can't sell. No one wants them, but it would look really cool in an art piece. I've been doing that for a long time. And so I've got a lot of stuff that I'm just like dying to get into and kind of make something with. And it's really cool because it's in the process, it's a total spell, right? Because you're literally combining different energies into a piece and doing some neat stuff. And there's silver that's there and the solder. And so everything's connected. It's really neat. So like I made a little grid kind of thing with this and activated it. And I was like, ooh, you sparkle. So like, it's neat. It's really cool. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see where this goes. And that's gonna be my summer jobs, or my summer job. My summer like fun project, I think, is just getting more into this and figuring it out into a way that I can actually like show off the pieces in a way that I'll be proud of. Because right now I'm just like, ooh, this is rough, but it was, again, I used very difficult solder. So we'll see. I don't know. I also learned a bunch of stuff that I did. Like, I didn't know you have to like kind of prime your soldering tip with a special type of tin, and it's like a whole thing. I had no idea. So I actually burnt through 2 soldering tips, just burnt right through them because I wasn't able to get the solder to stay. It was a whole fucking thing. Mm-hmm. I have learned. And so I'm excited about that. And I work a lot with copper, I work a whole lot with copper. So this is really fun for me because I learned that I can get like spare copper pieces and I can do, stuff with them. I can get copper strips, and there's a lot I can do that I didn't realize I was going to have the ability to do. So, and because I do work so much with copper, I'm just kind of biting at the bit or chomping at the bit rather to jump in and start working with copper and seeing what happens with that. So anyway, that has been that. And then of course, just knitting galore. And just kind of, it's so weird because this time last year I was stressing out over getting this big gig, and I started to work for a school district, and I was like in a very different place, like mentally, and I was very focused on this other stuff. And now I'm like, no, I don't want any of that. Like, I want to relax. I want to be an artist. I want to, yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like looking at these things that I've wanted to do with my crystals for like 20 years, and I'm going to start doing them and let them become something new. And I'm excited about that. But I can't do like the resin stuff like you and we've talked about. won't put a crystal in resin. That'll never happen, like ever in a million years. It ekes me out. Like orgonite ekes me out. And so like really ekes me out. So I'll never do that, even though I have plenty of things that would go float in organite perfectly fine, but I'm not doing that. But other than that, I figure why not have some fun?
And for those of you watching, this has like become like a real life, real time meme for us. Whenever
Totally.
I'm out at a trade show or a wholesale buying or wherever, and I find like those really terrible, like they're not even real organite because they didn't use any of the right things. Sometimes they're not even real crystals. It's like aquarium gravel that's been dyed in them.
Mhm.
I always take pictures of the most insidious examples and I send them straight to Devin,
You're like,
because
yeah.
I can feel his skin crawling through his
I
text.
die a little inside every time. It's so horrible. I can't stand it. I cannot stand. I mean, in general, resin stuff in general kind of bothers me because it's just like, oh, more plastic crap. Like that's where my mind instantly goes. I don't have anything that is like resin. Like I don't own anything like that. And so I'm like, if it's not glass, I probably don't want it. Like I'm just kind of particular about stuff. So, but like, I just can't get into it. And it's such an art thing. Like people are really into like making resin amulets and resin ashtrays and like resin blah blah blah. I'm like, you're just making more plastic crap. Like it's just crap, and it's just gonna get thrown away because it's god ugly, right? It's probably like neon green and neon orange and swirly, and like, okay, that's cute for a summer, but then you're over it. Like you're not gonna keep. So you just have this whole like resin is overdone in my opinion. I'm bitching about. I'm still like an old man, but yeah, I have such an issue with resin. And when people I can see comments coming in. Thank you, Caitlin. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Ivy. Yes, Ivy was agreeing to our music point. But yeah, I just cannot do the crystals and resin. It makes me want to scream. Makes me want to flames. There are flames. Like it's a thing. It really really irks me. But he does. He sends me like pictures of terrible organite, and I'll be like, we'll be in the grocery store, and then I'll go. He stops and looks. And yeah, that's happened. That's been a thing. But yeah, no organite, no organite. Organite is just ugh. And I have also like I had the experience of when my first organite experience was somebody who had been taking lessons with me many moons ago come up to me, and she handed me a piece of organite that she had made, and she had made it with like BB gun pellets and like I think it was just layered BB gun pellets and then like in the resin. And then I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, I was like, is this like some weird hockey puck? Like, I didn't know what it was. And she's like, oh, it's this really powerful organite that I made. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I just kind of put it off to the side and like whatever. And then I found out that there was like a sacred site where these pieces had been like buried all over the place. And I don't know if it was her or somebody that she knew or whatever, but it was just this whole thing of like, no. Let's not put plastic in the ground at sacred burial sites. Like let's just not do that. So there's like things like that where it was like an immediate like, oh no, this isn't good. Like this isn't good for the earth. It's not good for, I mean, none of it's good, right? So like, why are we doing this? It would be one thing if you were like resining somebody's like an organ or something for somebody to use or whatever the fuck. But we're talking about making plastic trinket crap that is just, it's lucite. It's just gonna go off into and become part of the fossil record. That's what's going to happen. It's going to become part of the fossil record. In a million years, they're going to break open a rock and they're going to find somebody's ugly ass resin poured ashtray that is still intact. And it's going to be just, in a pile of sedimentary rock, and it's going to be a thing. And everyone's going to be like, oh yeah. Sorry, I have feelings about this. Some people I can see people are agreeing with me, and I appreciate this. Yes. Yes, it is I love this. Michelle says she calls it the baloney of crystals. Yes, it is the baloney of crystals. Yeah, I just can't.
It is. And if it brings someone joy, like we were talking about earlier, I'm going to encourage you to do the thing that brings you joy. I get asked, it's not super frequent these days, but especially as I gear up for a book about psychic self-defense and protection from energies, I'm noticing the conversation comes up about organite, and my answer is almost always the same kind of one. I have a couple pieces that have been gifted to me. One is beside the computer right now. It was handmade by someone I know and love, and so it sits here. I would not go out of my way for organite. I'm uneducated about it because there's too little time in the day for me to learn about something that doesn't bring me joy.
Mhm.
I've seen exquisite art pieces made.
Yeah.
I've marveled over the intricacy of like the geometry and the sculpture, the drama of what's going on inside, and then I have to ask myself, is it really organite, or is it just a piece of art that makes it
Mm.
feel the way it does? But yeah, it's just not my thing. So
I've seen some cool pieces where it's like they basically take a grid and they
right,
just kind of set the grid and like okay, and it's neat looking. I mean it is, and you know, for what it is, it's neat, and it is art. And yeah, if it brings you joy, like by all means, you know. Um I just can't imagine like taking thousands, maybe even millions of years to like come to form and then just being stuck in plastic.
yeah.
Like because somebody had a whim to stick you in plastic. And so you will spend the rest of your existence in plastic. It bothers me personally, but that's me. I have thoughts and feelings on this, people, and I'm glad that it looks like people watching do too. So yeah, meh, man of that. It's like it's the equivalent of like painting a cactus. Don't do it. Just don't do it. We
Oh
don't
yeah,
need
that would
any of
be
this stuff.
sad
Yeah,
too.
yeah, don't do that. The synthetic nature of things, just you know, obviously synthetic things exist. It's a reason. There's a, you know, like, oh, that's fine, right? But like, don't take something that Mama Nature made to be a gorgeous, light carrying, divine beauty thing and just stick it in plastic. Like, just, you kill me every time. You kill me every time. Anyway, okay. So I digress from Organite. That was a long tangential thing with Organite. All to say, I will not be making Organite, but I will be doing stuff like this. I'm really excited about that. And I want to make a bunch of pendants. I have like this vision. This is a really big, like, big idea vision. This is my art project kind of for the year. I want to make 9 shawls that come with a corresponding crystal shawl pin that I also make. And I want them to be based off of the 9 sisters. And so I have this whole, like, I've been getting dreams about it. When I'm doing my work, I get these little flashes of inspiration about it. So I'm like, I think I'm going to do it. So I'm going to do this whole celestial shawl kind of thing. And I don't know what I'm going to do with those shawls, but I will do that. I have one that I'm working on that's like for a friend, that's taking forever, but it's gonna be beautiful when it's done. And then otherwise, just got some gifty stuff. So I'm just like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do this and make these art pieces, and then just kind of, you know, see what happens, and maybe put them up for auction. Maybe that's how I'll pay for my expensive ass computer that I want, because Mac is not cheap. Oh my god.
Mm,
But yeah, so I don't know, but I have this whole vision of like making this stuff. So that's, I've already started, like, I have silk. I've collected silk for this, but like, it has begun. It has begun. So yeah, I'm really excited. But yeah, I want to make these shawl pins that go with them from the crystals that I have. I think to be really fun and pretty, and a nice way of like working with the energy again, right? Because like that idea of like, oh, your geo broke in half or whatever, you'll never use it again, you'll never it'll just be in the bottom of a fish tank.
right.
Like now it'll get a new life instead of just kind of being forgotten about. So I'm really excited about that whole thing. I think it's gonna be really neat. So yeah, so that's kind of what I've been like. That's basically been it. Like, I've just been in like creative space and getting caught up. I was really sick for like 2 weeks because of allergies. Like, I have never experienced allergies before. I mean, never. This has been the worst year for allergies. Everyone's had hay fever. Everyone's been really like just kind of off, and things are it's finally getting hot enough that like everything's starting to die. So it's like, I hate to say it, but like it was 90 yesterday, and I was like, thank God, because now like, and it's not. There's no more rain. Like that's all stopped, and so now things will just dry up in our area. And so no more pollen, and that'll be great. But it has been a really rough couple of months, and I have to tell you, or months, a couple of weeks, I have to tell you that I have not had the space or the energy really to like dive into my crystal practice until we started the Crystal Magic Intensive that we are now. This is week 3. We're going into week 3 right now,
Uh-huh.
of the Crystal Magic Intensive, and it's been so good because it's letting me get back into my practice again, and it has absolutely helped, like with just my energy levels and like everything. So it's been really fun to dive back into that with you, and people are really enjoying the class as well. And so that's really cool. It is closed, everybody. We are closed for this round, but we'll do it again. We'll probably do it in the fall. or thereabouts. We haven't really talked about it, so I've just put that on you, Nicholas. That's the first time you're hearing about it. But we'll probably do it again, soon-ish, and you should join us because it's a really, really good time. And we work with crystal familiars, which is neat as sin. It's very neat. So anyway, all this to say, it's good to be back. We will be back in a fortnight, so we're going back to our bi-weekly kind of shenanigans. And while this is happening, we've got a bunch of new shows dropping on the network. So this is the first of many, 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 many things to come, including season 12 of the Modern Witch podcast. Season 12. I can't freaking believe it's season 12 already. So big things are coming down the way. So definitely check out. In the meantime, Nicholas, if people want to hang out with you on the interwebs, where are we sending them?
Definitely head over to my website, theluminouspearl.com. I will be updating the calendar again to reflect some great new things coming. Sign up for my newsletter. Learn about all my books. We're adding new details for the next book, and then soon some others on there in the near future as well. But you can also find me on social media. It's usually at The Luminous Pearl. Listen to me ramble on Instagram and show off new instruments and show you what the latest rocks are in my collection and tell you funny stories about things that I've learned or answer your questions about rocks. I love doing all of that. So, but it's all kind of at that hub, theluminouspearl.com and or at The Luminous Pearl someplace.
No. Yeah, and that's pretty much you've been able to be very consistent with that. I'm not so much. You can just go to modernwitch.com if you want to find me, and you can get linkage to all my socials, and that's probably just the easiest thing. But I am at Mr. Devin Hunter on most of the things, and there's a lot of clone accounts right now. There's like a bloom of clone accounts that have happened. So I'll never invite myself to do a reading for you or any of those things. Trust me, you have to come find my ass for that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I apologize if you're getting that. Just report to people. That's all you can do. But in the meantime, we will see you in 2 weeks, and we will be back with a luscious discussion on the stone tanzanite. And I'm really excited about it because it is one of my favorites, and it's a guilty pleasure because I feel like I'm not supposed to like tanzanite. I feel like I am not supposed to enjoy it as much as I do and covet it as much as I do. And we'll unpack this next
I'm looking forward to unpacking that one with you.
Yeah. But I love it, and I'm kind of obsessed with it. So so we'll talk about all of this in 2 weeks when we come back for a all new episode of Getting Stoned with Devin and Nicholas. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.